So I think I can start. For those of you who don't know who I am, I have been leading groups in collaborative vocal improvisation for, I think I should really figure out exactly how long, but I think it's about 14 years now. Oh, hey, Jude. I didn't see you come in. Hey. And I was, for a long time, I was a dancer, a contemporary dance dancer, and a backup dancer on French TV behind French pop stars, and a runway model. And then I was an actor, and then I started studying jazz. And I was a jazz singer for a while. And while I was studying jazz, I discovered Bobby McFerrin and totally fell in love with that kind of vocal improvisation. I had learned scat, but though I learned how to do it, and I do really enjoy it, it didn't give me the same feeling. And when I first discovered what we do, what we all love, the people who are here, I just was blown away, and I felt like I could feel the transformative possibilities for me in my life outside of music, not just in music. And I felt free. And the first few workshops I did just opened a whole new world for me. I had been a stay-at-home mom for a few years and was looking for something to do with the rest of my life. And I decided this was what I was going to do. So I started studying. I went to work to Bobby McFerrin's annual workshop 4 times. I started doing every workshop I could with Rhiannon. And then I also fell in love with Musica do Circulo. And that's where I met my co-host Venla, was in the Musica do Circulo training. And I guess the main thing I want to say is that my way of working is really a synthesis of what I learned from Bobby, what I learned from Rhiannon, and what I learned from Musica do Circulo, but also with my experience as a dancer, as an actor, and even as a model, as a runway model, because that's also live performance. So that's who I am. And what we would really like to do now is, so the subject today is facilitating groups with people who have mixed levels of experience, people who are not all beginners or all experienced improvisers. Like, what do you do? How do you handle a group when there are some people who are really musicians and experienced improvisers, and you've got some people who are total beginners? Or even sometimes some people who think they can't sing or really sort of have difficulty and have difficulty carrying a melody or keeping a steady rhythm. So what do you do when that happens? And my questions to you are, what do you do when that happens? Do you enjoy that? Or is it just super challenging and you feel like that's something you have to do? Is it a choice to have groups with mixed levels of experience, or is it just the way it is? And we're going to put you in breakout rooms, 3 people at a time, to talk about that and share your experiences to start. So Venla, let me let this person in. Are you ready with breakouts, or do you need a few more minutes?
Yes, and hello everybody. I think, wait. I think also if you don't have experience in leading groups, maybe you have been a participant in some kind of event where there's been mixed level of, or you have felt there has been mixed levels, so you can also share something about that experience. So it's quite free. It's just the idea to share some ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in a group with people who are leaders and you are not yet, it would be really interesting to hear what your experience is also as a participant. And try to be careful of letting each person speak for around 3 minutes if you can. And I guess we can send you to the rooms. So welcome back, everybody. What I would love to do now is hear from at least one person from each breakout room on what were the main themes that came up for you in your discussion.
Yeah, Shauna started by saying that she puts people like that. The first point can be putting people in their bodies and their breath, so
Mm,
those practices right away, which I think is a universally good choice. And
yes.
just speaking about it kind of made me realize that sometimes when I have a group where the range between the most experienced and the least experienced is wide, I find that naturally there's a way of simplifying some of the practices uh, as a starting point. So I gave the example of like a one note motor because
Mm-hmm.
that's also interesting. And then if
Yep.
you have three people singing the same one note motor on the same syllable but on different notes, then it becomes a chord, and that can be, then someone who wants to solo might, then there's ample freedom. So someone who's very experienced might have a really rich experience, you know. But I was feeling that often in the when the gap is wide, people end up sort of naturally. I think I naturally focus more on just the personal, that there's a personal evolution and a creative um, opportunity, so that I think the goal subconsciously becomes that everybody come out satisfied, but sometimes it's for different reasons. So sometimes people who are less experienced might kind of feel a personal growth, whereas on the musical scale, they might feel like, oh, wow, I really got to stretch out in my solo on that, one note motor times three. So, uh, yeah, I think it's always an opportunity. And I think subconsciously, as facilitators, there's a way of adapting right away so that everyone is satisfied. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense to me personally. That yes, that's how my approach too is to try to find you when that happens. If there's a huge discrepancy, is to find games and find ways of reassuring the people who are beginners or who are more beginners, so that everybody feels safe, which is what Noga said too, and make things where people of various levels can, as you said, Gitu, find joy, find fun, find a challenge. And it can be extremely different for different people. Yeah, for some people, just one of the things we talked about in the group I was in, because several people arrived late and then I stayed with them, is just, singing one note and holding one note can be extremely challenging. And just so you know, by the way, Gitu, that game, I call it Gitu One Note. And I use it all the time. And I mention you every time I use it. And it's a really good game because it works for beginners and it works for people who are more experienced. And people who are more experienced will choose notes that are super close, that are hard to hold, and people who are not experienced will go 1, 3, 5. So it's a really, really good game. Does anybody
Yeah, and I
else from
also,
that group? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, like, I just want to add that also, keeping time, that often in some parts of the world, we're not good at keeping time. And so, like, finding a communal pulse can become, I think, really satisfying. Again, people with more rhythmic experience can go a little deeper, and there's always an invitation. If stepping 1, 2, 3, 4 is really natural for you, then focus on maybe the subdivisions, or but if stepping 1, 2, 3, 4 is still complicated, we'll focus on that. So yeah, again, sort of inviting people to be where they need to be to stay juicy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So who else would like to share? What were the other groups like? Yeah, go ahead, Pamela.
Well, I had a lovely conversation, even though her connection is not very good at the moment and I'm not going to pronounce it correctly. You can help me, Visha, who's in France. Um, I guess what I would say, I was struck, Kay, when you said that you bring all the different experiences that you've had to teaching vocal improvisation. And so for me, I've done a lot of facilitation of leadership groups, and I bring improvisation into leadership. But I'm also part of a circle singing group that meets monthly. And what I've noticed, because different people show up each time, is that when there is a variance in terms of experience, what feels most important to me and often doesn't happen is enough time on the community building side. So
Mm.
there's often taking a moment to talk with one other person to one prompt. But in my experience, it often takes a little more than that. And when people have a chance to share something with a few other people at least, they often find that the experienced person has something else in common with the inexperienced singer. So you begin to build a sense of community. The other piece is I think that we're very clear in these circles about the fact that things are by invitation and how the processes will work. But I think we often don't introduce some norms that are helpful. And I do work that comes out of the work of a man named Parker Palmer, the Center for Courage and Renewal. And one of the norms or touchstones that we use that I think would be helpful in this situation is the idea of welcoming, bringing welcome, receiving welcome, and extending welcome. This idea or this question of what would it be like if in this group we were all receiving welcome from each other, but we're all taking responsibility for making it a welcoming place. And there's some other touchstones. And the final thing that I would say is around, I think people often, especially in the mixed groups, come to these circles with different goals or different fears or hopes. But I think it is about connections and feeling a sense of belonging. And I think that there's so many life lessons that come out of these experiences that being able to give people time at the end, not just to debrief the exercises, but to reflect on maybe with one other person first, with what's something not that you're taking away or something that surprised you or a question that you're leaving with. I think that sometimes the community building piece or the debriefing piece that we do is almost an afterthought. It's not seen as having as much importance as the other. And I think it actually helps to strengthen the musical piece of these circles. So that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Pamela, and that's what's really interesting. I don't know if you know Musica do Circulo work, but Musica do Circulo is really based on that. It's the work, the community building. You start with that, and then you add the exploration of body percussion and rhythm and melody, but it's really about community. So one of the things that we use in Musica do Circulo a lot is check-ins in duos. And I always, when I have groups with mixed levels, I try to have 3 different duos through the session. That's one thing that's really helpful, where people, are in a more intimate conversation with one person, so they feel safe with that one person, and then they feel safe with another person, and then another person, and so the big group becomes less threatening. That's really important. Thank you I'd love to know more about Parker Palmer. Can you put that in the chat? Can you put the name of that book? That would be great. Sorry, can't hear you anymore. What did you say?
Yes, I'll put the book in the Center for Courage and Renewal on the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Is somebody else like to share something from that group?
And I can also just comment that in case you feel like sharing something in the chat, that's totally fine. So also if something pops up in your mind or you wanted to share, your group already presented, so please feel free to write in the chat.
Yeah, what about you, Kate, too? Because I know you've had a lot of experience with this kind of mixed level group.
I have actually. We had a very beautiful conversation too, and I'll let our folks, our people that were in the group talk. But I'll just say, like, I think 2 things I was considering was keeping things very simple, which Kay you already mentioned, and Gitu also mentioned. But it's a simple, basic elements of music. And as a skill building kind of focus to sort of get people in the same world. This is kind of what we're doing. Here's how do you make a long tone, even if it's not pitch perfect or anything? How do you get a simple groove, and can you feel it in your body? And always going to the previous developmental level. So even if someone is not able to move in a rhythmic way side to side, then we can go to the toddler dance. What I call the toddler dance was just standing still and bouncing with your knees, you know, and like everybody can find a way. And then our job really as our invitation as a host of these events is just really watching and listening and making those adjustments, you know, as we go along. And one of the other things too really is giving the option of either passing when if something's going around, or just the invitation to participate at whatever level that someone is able. And that might mean listening, which is an action verb. And it might mean offering another art form. Like maybe someone is more comfortable with words than with singing. Maybe someone is more comfortable moving or making animal sounds. Like really creating a way of where the music, where what we're creating together, there's room for everyone to be present for that.